Picture this. It's 11 p.m. on a moonless night in 1850. No streetlights pierce the darkness. No warm glow spills from windows. The world outside your door is an abyss so complete that you literally cannot see your hand in front of your face. This was reality for 99.9% of human history. But here's what's truly unsettling. People didn't just survive these endless dark nights, they thrived in them. They built civilizations, created art, fell in love, and raised families, all while living in a darkness so profound that most of us today would find it terrifying. How did they do it? And what secrets of survival did they master that we've completely forgotten? Tonight, we're going back to a time when darkness ruled the world, and humanity had to become something extraordinary just to make it through the night. Let's start with a number that will change how you see history. For over 200,000 years of human existence, the sun was humanity's only reliable light source. When it set, the world didn't just get dark, it became dangerous, mysterious, and utterly unforgiving. Imagine being a medieval peasant in 14th century England. Winter nights lasted up to 16 hours. That's 16 hours of complete blackness, where wolves prowled the forests, bandits roamed the roads, and even your own neighbors could become threats under the cover of darkness. Yet somehow, entire civilizations flourished during these lightless centuries. The truth is, our ancestors developed an almost supernatural relationship with darkness that we've lost. They could navigate by starlight, tell time by the position of the moon, and detect threats using senses we've allowed to atrophy. But their survival strategies went far deeper than just heightened senses. Consider this. Archaeological evidence shows that humans began controlling fire roughly 400,000 years ago. But here's the mystery. They didn't use it the way you might think. Recent studies of ancient hearths reveal something fascinating. Our ancestors didn't keep fires burning all night like we imagine. Instead, they developed sophisticated techniques for preserving embers and rekindling flames that modern survivalists are only now rediscovering. The Hadza people of Tanzania still practice these ancient methods today. They can keep a fire alive for days using nothing but carefully selected wood and precise airflow techniques passed down through generations. When European explorers first encountered such tribes in the 1800s, they were baffled by their ability to produce fire, seemingly from nothing. But fire was just the beginning of humanity's arsenal against the dark. Walk through any medieval European city today, and you'll notice something odd about the buildings. The windows are tiny, the streets are narrow, and houses seem to huddle together like frightened animals. We've always been told this was about defense or climate, but recent research reveals a more intriguing truth. These cities were designed for darkness. Take the ancient city of Rothenburg ob der Tauber in Germany. Its winding streets weren't just charming. They were deliberately maze-like to confuse potential invaders who couldn't see more than a few feet ahead. The narrow passages between buildings created wind tunnels that kept torches and oil lamps from being extinguished. Even the famous overhanging upper floors served a purpose. They provided natural shelter for street-level lighting. But the most ingenious adaptation was the development of what historians call darkness architecture inside homes. Medieval houses were built with specific rooms designated for different lighting conditions. The main hall had high ceilings and large fireplaces designed to maximize light distribution. Sleeping chambers were positioned to catch the first rays of dawn. And kitchens, the heart of evening activity, were often equipped with multiple fire sources and reflective surfaces to amplify available light. Here's where it gets really interesting. Archaeologists have discovered evidence of ancient light management systems that rival modern engineering. In Pompeii, preserved houses reveal intricate networks of bronze mirrors positioned to redirect and multiply lamplight throughout rooms. Some wealthy Roman homes had what can only be described as primitive fiber optic systems, polished metal tubes that channeled light from central sources to distant corners of the house. The Romans took this even further with their public spaces. The Colosseum, that marvel of ancient engineering, had a sophisticated system of reflective surfaces that allowed events to continue well into the evening. Bronze shields and polished marble were strategically placed to catch and redirect any available light, creating an early form of stadium lighting that wouldn't be matched again for over 1,000 years. But perhaps the most remarkable example comes from medieval monasteries. Monks who needed to read and write during long winter nights developed an entire science around manuscript illumination that had nothing to do with pretty pictures. The gold leaf used in illuminated manuscripts wasn't just decorative, it was functional. These pages were designed to reflect candlelight back to the reader, making text legible in conditions that would challenge modern readers, even with electric light. Now here's where our story takes a fascinating turn into human biology. Recent scientific studies have revealed something extraordinary about our ancestors' eyes. They were literally different from ours. Dr. Russell Foster, a circadian rhythm researcher at Oxford University, has spent years studying historical accounts of night vision. His findings are startling. Medieval and ancient texts consistently describe people performing complex tasks in what we would consider complete darkness. They weren't exaggerating or romanticizing. Their eyes had adapted to function in light levels that would leave modern humans effectively blind. This adaptation wasn't just about practice, it was genetic. Populations that lived without artificial light for millennia developed enhanced night vision that we've lost in just a few generations. The Inuit people of the Arctic, who endured months of polar night, evolved eyes with larger pupils and more light-sensitive cells. Even today, many Inuit individuals can see clearly in conditions that would completely blind someone from a light-polluted city. But the most intriguing discovery comes from studies of medieval skeletons. Bone analysis reveals that people from the pre-electric era had different skull structures around their eye sockets, specifically larger openings that accommodated eyes optimized for low-light conditions. There's also the question of their sleep patterns, which were radically different from ours. Historical records from across cultures describe something called first sleep and second sleep. People would sleep for about 4 hours after sunset, then wake up for 2 or 3 hours of quiet activity, prayer, intimate conversation, creative work, before returning to sleep until dawn. This wasn't insomnia or a sleep disorder. It was humanity's natural rhythm, confirmed by sleep studies of people living without artificial light. During that middle-of-the-night wake period, the human body produces unique hormones that enhance creativity and calm. Some historians argue that this quiet time was when many great ideas and innovations were born. Think about it. Shakespeare, Michelangelo, Newton, they all lived in this world of segmented sleep and darkness. Were their creative breakthroughs somehow connected to biological rhythms we've lost? But here's the controversial part that some researchers debate. There's evidence suggesting that prolonged exposure to natural darkness cycles might have enhanced other cognitive abilities as well. Medieval accounts describe people with almost supernatural abilities to judge time, weather, and even emotional states of others. All skills that seem to correlate with the deep circadian rhythms that artificial light has disrupted. While our ancestors adapted biologically to darkness, they also became master engineers of light itself. The story of ancient lighting technology is far more sophisticated than most people realize. Let's start with candles, which seem simple, but were actually marvels of engineering. Medieval candlemakers didn't just dip wicks in wax. They created complex formulations designed for specific purposes. Church candles burned differently than household candles. Reading candles produced steadier light than cooking candles. Some candles were even designed to burn at precise rates, serving as timepieces in the darkness. The wealthy had access to spermaceti candles made from whale oil, which burned so cleanly and brightly that they remained the gold standard for lighting well into the electric age. But here's what's fascinating. Even common people developed ingenious alternatives. In colonial America, families would make rushlights by soaking dried marsh grasses in animal fat. These provided hours of steady light at a fraction of the cost of proper candles. Oil lamps were another marvel of ancient engineering. The Greeks and Romans perfected designs that maximize light output while minimizing fuel consumption. Some Roman oil lamps had intricate reflector systems that could illuminate entire rooms. Archaeological sites have revealed lamps with multiple wicks, adjustable flames, and even early versions of lamp chimneys that improved airflow and brightness. But perhaps the most remarkable lighting innovation came from an unexpected source: medieval alchemists. In their quest to turn base metals into gold, they accidentally discovered several compounds that could create incredibly bright flames. Some of these formulations were so advanced that they weren't fully understood by modern chemistry until the 20th century. One particular recipe, found in a 13th century manuscript and only recently decoded, describes a fuel mixture that burned with the intensity of a modern halogen bulb. The ingredients included highly refined alcohols, specific mineral salts, and what appears to be an early form of chemical catalyst. When researchers recreated this mixture using period-appropriate methods, they were shocked by its brilliance. This raises intriguing questions about what other advanced technologies existed in the pre-electric era. Some historians argue that certain lighting techniques were closely guarded secrets, passed down through guilds and eventually lost during social upheavals like plagues and wars. The Vikings, those legendary seafarers, had their own remarkable lighting innovations. They created portable oil lamps that could burn fish oil so efficiently that a single lamp could provide light for an entire longhouse. More importantly, they developed weatherproof versions of these lamps that could stay lit during ocean voyages, allowing for navigation and essential tasks during the long Arctic nights. Darkness wasn't just a challenge to overcome. It fundamentally shaped how human societies organized themselves. The rhythm of light and dark created social structures, cultural practices, and community bonds that we're only now beginning to understand. In medieval Europe, the concept of curfew, literally meaning cover the fire, wasn't just about public safety. It was a complex social ritual that brought entire communities together each evening. When the curfew bell rang, families would gather around their hearths, neighbors would visit each other, and entire villages would transform into intimate social networks. These evening gatherings weren't just casual socializing. They were essential survival strategies. Families would pool their resources, sharing light, heat, and food. Stories would be told, skills would be taught, and crucial information about weather, crops, and local dangers would be exchanged. The darkness that isolated individual homes actually brought the broader community closer together. But here's what's really fascinating. Different cultures developed completely different strategies for social organization during dark hours. In Japan, the concept of yobai, nighttime courtship visits, created elaborate social protocols around darkness and romance. Young people would navigate by moonlight to visit potential partners, developing skills in stealth, navigation, and social reading that were considered essential life abilities. Native American tribes had equally sophisticated approaches. Many Plains tribes organized their entire camp layouts around optimizing shared light sources. Teepees were positioned in specific patterns that created windbreaks for central fires while allowing light to spill between dwellings. The social hierarchy of the tribe was often reflected in proximity to these communal light sources. The most intriguing example comes from medieval Iceland, where the long polar nights created unique social innovations. Icelandic families developed the tradition of kvöldvaka, evening wakes, where extended families would gather for months-long winter sessions of storytelling, crafting, and collaborative work. These weren't just social gatherings. They were intensive educational programs where young people learned everything from practical skills to cultural history. Archaeological evidence from Icelandic longhouses shows incredibly sophisticated layouts designed to maximize both light distribution and social interaction. Some structures had tiered seating arrangements that ensured everyone could see and participate in evening activities, while complex ventilation systems managed smoke and airflow to keep oil lamps burning efficiently. These social adaptations to darkness created some unexpected consequences. Historians have noted that many pre-electric societies had remarkably low rates of depression and anxiety, despite living in what we would consider harsh conditions. The forced communal activities during dark hours may have provided social support systems that modern, individually lit societies lack. But not all aspects of pre-electric darkness were cozy fireside gatherings. The night was also a realm of genuine danger, and our ancestors developed remarkable strategies for survival that often sound more like military tactics than daily life. Bandits and highway robbers were real and constant threats. Unlike modern criminals who avoid well-lit areas, medieval outlaws used darkness as their primary weapon. They knew every shadow, every hiding spot, every acoustic quirk of their territory. In response, travelers developed counter-strategies that were passed down through generations, like military knowledge. Professional travelers, merchants, messengers, pilgrims, became experts in what we might call darkness warfare. They learned to move silently, to detect ambushes by smell and sound, and to use misdirection and deception to avoid confrontations they couldn't win. Some of these techniques were incredibly sophisticated. Medieval merchant guides describe methods for creating false camps, elaborate decoys designed to draw bandits away from the real sleeping areas. Travelers would use multiple small fires instead of single large ones, making it difficult for attackers to determine their exact numbers and positions. The most dangerous aspect of pre-electric nights, however, wasn't human. It was psychological. Extended darkness can do strange things to the human mind, and our ancestors developed elaborate mental strategies for maintaining sanity during the long winter nights. Medieval medical texts describe a condition called night madness, a form of seasonal depression exacerbated by light deprivation. The treatments they developed were surprisingly advanced. Specific dietary recommendations, mandatory social activities, and even early forms of what we now recognize as light therapy using polished metals and strategic fire placement. But perhaps the most remarkable survival strategy was how communities handled the genuine terror that darkness could induce. Many cultures developed elaborate systems of night watches, not just for security, but for psychological support. Watchmen would call out to each other throughout the night, creating acoustic networks that reassured everyone that they weren't alone in the darkness. These calls weren't random. They followed specific patterns that could convey detailed information about weather, threats, and community status. A skilled night watchman could communicate the approach of strangers, changes in wind direction, or even the general mood of the community using nothing but carefully timed calls across the darkness. As we reach the end of our journey through humanity's relationship with darkness, we're left with profound questions about what we've gained and what we've lost in our conquest of the night. The introduction of widespread electric lighting in the late 1800s didn't just illuminate our world, it fundamentally changed what it means to be human. We've gained safety, productivity, and convenience beyond our ancestors' wildest dreams. But we've also lost capabilities and connections that took our species hundreds of thousands of years to develop. Modern sleep researchers are only now discovering the health consequences of our disrupted circadian rhythms. Depression, anxiety, and cognitive disorders that were rare in pre-electric societies are now epidemic. Some scientists argue that our 24/7 illuminated world is creating mental health challenges that we're only beginning to understand. But it's not just individual health. We've also lost social structures and community bonds that darkness once forced upon us. The evening gatherings, the shared resources, the collaborative survival strategies, these created resilient communities that could weather almost any crisis. Today's individualized, illuminated world may be more comfortable, but it's also more fragile. There's also the question of human potential. Those enhanced night vision capabilities, the heightened sensory awareness, the deep creative rhythms of segmented sleep, these weren't just quaint historical curiosities. They were human abilities that we've traded away, possibly forever. Some researchers and philosophers argue that we should consider deliberately reintroducing periods of darkness into our lives. Not as a rejection of modern technology, but as a way of reconnecting with aspects of human nature that millions of years of evolution have programmed into our genes. Small communities around the world are already experimenting with this. Dark sky preserves, technology-free retreats, and intentional communities that observe evening digital sunsets are showing remarkable improvements in mental health, creativity, and social cohesion. So here we are, masters of a world that never sleeps, surrounded by light at the flip of a switch. We've conquered the darkness that our ancestors feared and respected for millennia. But in that conquest, have we lost something essential about what makes us human? The next time you find yourself in complete darkness, whether it's a power outage, a camping trip, or just a quiet moment with the lights off, pay attention to what you experience. Listen to your heightened senses awakening. Feel your mind shifting into patterns that your genes remember, even if your conscious mind has forgotten. Maybe, just maybe, you'll catch a glimpse of the remarkable beings our ancestors were. People who didn't just survive the darkness, but learned to dance with it, to find beauty in it, and to discover aspects of themselves that only emerge when the artificial lights go out. The darkness is still there, waiting just beyond our electric glow. And perhaps, in rediscovering our relationship with it, we might rediscover parts of ourselves we never knew we'd lost. What do you think? Have we illuminated our way to a brighter future, or have we blinded ourselves to ancient wisdom that our survival might still depend on? The answer might be hiding in the shadows, just beyond the reach of our electric light.